All right, now it's time for the super quick overview of imperialism in India. And this is going to focus primarily on the British and India. All right, so the British, they got the king and queen, and queen usually has a crown with a bunch of jewels on it. And the reason why they call it the jewel in the crown is because it's usually the biggest jewel in the crown and the biggest or best colony in Great Britain is India. All right, and that's for a few different reasons. Uh, so basically, it's all about money, just like how in Africa, all the Europeans came over in search of making money. They had massive amounts of raw materials that they could use back in Britain to make goods. And another thing is that they also had a bunch of people in India. All right. So people that they could take those finished goods that were created using Indian goods or raw materials and force these people in India to buy the finished goods. All right. So they basically took the raw materials from India, brought it back to Great Britain, turned those raw materials into finished goods, and forced the Indian population to buy those goods. All right. And so when Great Britain was in control, they started forcing farmers to farm these cash crops. All right, that means that they weren't farming food that they needed to survive. And so people are going to start to get neglected. They're going to start to um, become starving. They're going to start to be hungry, and they're going to start to grow some resentment against the British. All right, sepoy soldiers. These are Indians that are fighting as a part of the British military, or they're working for the British military to maybe keep peace or whatever it might be. Now you might be wondering, why would these Indian people work for the imperializing force? Well, maybe you think that uh, these Europeans coming over with superior weapons and everything like that, these are great people, and why wouldn't you want to work with superior people? But also, maybe you're Muslim in a Hindu region. Generally, you would be scared, but if you're working for the colonizers or the imperializers, you technically wouldn't have anything to worry about because they would have your back. But what ended up happening was that these cartridges here, back with these weapons, you basically had a cartridge, or you had to like put the cartridge in your mouth, rip off the end of it, you just stuff it down the barrel, and then boom, you would get one shot. All right, and they had to do this every time they needed to shoot their gun. And a rumor started going around that the cartridge was greased with either pig or cow fat. All right, now why is that a big deal? Well, depending on your religion, uh, you either don't eat pig or you don't eat cow as a part of the two major religions in India. All right, so either way, whatever religion you are part of, it was against your religion to basically eat it or even put it in your mouth. All right. And so a big sepoy mutiny is what it's called. It's just a big rebellion where a bunch of sepoy soldiers were pissed off about these cartridges. Now, eventually, the British are obviously going to put it down because they're the superior military force. Um, but that just kind of signifies a theme that over time, the British just kept disrespecting Indian culture. Oh, you don't like putting a greased cartridge in your mouth to rip it off? Too bad. It's your job. Do it. Right. And so that's just one example of many where the Indians were disrespected by the British. All right. So some positive and negative effects of imperialism on India. India is just this massive region here, and Great Britain has control of it all. And so India is basically going to lose all control of their land to the imperializer, to Great Britain. They're going to force them to start growing cash crops. They're not going to be able to support their population food wise if they're being forced to grow these cash crops instead of actual food to feed the population. Now, infrastructure is going to be on the rise during this time because the British see the positives of having good roads, having good, strong buildings, everything that goes along with infrastructure. The British are able to take that to India, and they're able to start dominating economically the region, but also they don't have a whole lot of control of that. Here are just a few pictures of uh, India during this time of the British imperializing everyone. Here's just a good picture in the top right of uh, the disrespect going on from the Great British, well, yeah, the Great Britain officers. I can't even talk. The British officers, Great Britain officers, whatever you want to call them, disrespecting everyone. Famine, massive famine, because they had to grow so many cash crops they couldn't support the population. And then here's just a picture signifying the Seapoint Mutiny. And so, to summarize, India is the crown jewel of the British Empire because of all the people and the raw materials that could be utilized. Sepoy Rebellion reveals the anger of imperialism, uh, but and then they can't do anything because the Europeans have superior weaponry. Still read the pages, fill out that note packet, and let me know if you have any questions.